What is the idea? What is the musical idea behind or to for Rose Mountain Slow Runner?
Well, I haven't been working with musical ideas for a while, but I've been working on my consciousness, on my mode of consciousness, and the result of the mode is the music. So that I have a task to do, and in the case of Rose Mountain Slow Runner, I have to give up my intentions as far as the sounds are concerned, so that I'm listening. As I'm listening, if an intention arises, then I have to wait until I have no intention, and then the sound changes from there. It comes from an involuntary.
Does that allow for an unmeasured silence? I mean, does the initiation of the sound that you make come as a result of no intention? You have to reach a state of no intention.
I have to reach it. I have to begin. But after the beginning,
what form of how do you attempt to reach that state of consciousness? Do you work at that? I mean, is that intentional, or is it based on some other mode?
No, to reach that mode of consciousness is intentional. I mean, so my intention is directed there, or will, toward the task. And
your will is directed toward reaching the state of consciousness, out of which the music will come involuntarily.
Yes, right.
What? Did you come upon that state of consciousness as part of your daily life and discover that it produced music, or did you search for it?
Well, it's a search, and it's an ongoing search, but it comes from a task that I gave myself about 1957 as a result of listening to recorded environments, where I would put a microphone in my window and record for the length of the tape and then play back. And I realized that I wasn't listening to very much. And so I gave myself the task of listening to everything all of the time, and from that point, and reminding myself when I wasn't listening. And as I became more and more aware of not listening, and bringing myself to listen, then I began to listen more inwardly as well as outwardly, so that there was an expansion both ways. I realized very slowly over a long period of time that the activity of performing, or of framing a performance, and the intentions that accumulate around that activity produce a certain anxious kind of mode, or it can.
They do, yeah, I know.
Right.
Yeah.
And I became bothered by that. I became bothered by the flurry of activity, and how it tends to mask so many things. For instance, all the sounds that we're hearing right now, the creaking and the fire snapping and so on. I feel that, I mean, that's a part of the relationship that I have to work with all of the time. So gradually I realized that I had to learn to bring that kind of listening into the kind of music that I was making, and that intending to do something produced a particular kind of feeling, and then there was a certain delay time.
We seem to be governed by that morality of by the morality of not wanting that feeling. I mean, it seems to me that might be the reason we recognize you as an artist, because you make that feeling clear to us, you know. But I think that everybody must. I mean, there must be a morality. Don't you think there must be a morality producing the antipathy toward that feeling that you don't find in composers of, say, 100 years ago. You know what I mean? Seems like the people from the music of 100 years ago, you get the feeling that music is very often glorifying those anxieties. Don't you feel that?
Well, I put it another way, I think, and that is that there was a clear, composer of 100 years ago had a clear function. I mean, there's a...
To be anxious.
No, not to be anxious, but the function of his work was clear. I mean, for instance, Bach,
yeah,
in the church, writing for the church.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, certainly there was anxiety and coming out of the performances and so on, but the function of the music was clear.
Yeah, I was suggesting that, you know, that people must have valued that anxiety, because you hear the anxiety in the music, and you hear the anxiety in the music, and you hear that must have been a valuable sort of feeling, you know, like you'd say that beans were valuable to the Indians to eat, right? There must have been a value to that feeling of anxiety in order to have it so much in the news, to have all the music be about anxiety. So if your music is about a state of mind or a place in your consciousness where there's no anxiety, that you wouldn't have been. I don't think you would have been. You'd only be at home in this time, don't you think? I mean, don't you think that's very natural for you to feel that way?
Natural. I don't know, because first of all, I think maybe I'm not sure I can agree with the ideas that you've developed about anxiety, and that anxiety being in the music. I think it is in certain kinds of music. It comes through.
It's not in your music.
No,
I didn't
no.
mean that.
I know you didn't mean that, but I mean projecting it in other music. I think that it has to be a little more specific, perhaps, to understand what we're talking about. But I'm talking about the kind of performance anxiety that I had. Also, I think there was an anxious kind of movement in the music that I wrote at the end of the 50s.
Yeah.
And that all through the 60s there was sort of a dissolving and a working with that kind of anxiety, fragmentation, and dissolution of tonality, say, and dissolution musical materials that had come from all of that time.
Yeah.
So that I mean, there are two things for me, and one is the move into this meditative sort of work, and the idea of changing my consciousness, my own consciousness, as I work. And the other was the theatrical development, where I began to work with materials other than just sound, you know. And it was a kind of way of disorientation of roles, disorientation of the audience's role with the music, a drawing of attention away from simply soundings, a drawing of attention into the situation, you know, and the boundaries of the situation. Yeah.
Do you feel that this situation that we're in right now is anxious, or was it achieved in a way of meditation, a way of non-intention, or?
Well, certainly. I mean, our particular interaction is one that's not. It has a certain amount of premeditation, but there's no. There were no guarantees about how we would talk, what we would talk about, so that there was this establishment of a frame, and a deliberately, I would rather not know what questions would come up, for instance.
You know, I couldn't have imagined a question, you know, other than the way we're talking now.
Right. In order to find what is in myself and what would come forth, you know, at this point. And that's related very much, I think, to the way that I'm working, trying to find what is there, rather than trying to guarantee some particular thing in advance.
Why did you? How is your voice involved in? Why did you choose in the area of sounds that you chose?
Well, because it's very direct. I mean, it's a direct connection with the inner world. I mean, so this is where I can manifest what is occurring within myself without a translation from myself to an instrument, say. Although I'm using my accordion, which has been a part of my life for over 30 years.
Yeah, the accordion seems like part of you.
Yeah, and it has become that. But a lot of the work that I've been doing has been involved with just vocal sounds, the meditations, sonic meditations, so on.
Yeah, I know that. I loved the welcoming piece that you did here 2 years ago, I think.
Here at Mills, yeah.
Yeah.
The greeting meditation.
The greeting meditation, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's funny. I thought of it as a welcoming, but
yes, it is a welcome because
it's such a beautiful effect. You know, when you come into that room, you think when you walk into the room and you hear the sound that the people are making, because you walked into the room, but you didn't know that. You think that you're just walking in synchronously with the people making this beautiful sound. So it's as if you found the sound. You know, and everybody who walks in the room has exactly the same experience, and
That's
you know that everybody sitting there is your friend in that experience, you know?
Right.
Oh, it's so nice.
Yeah. No, it's interesting to see the different times that it's taking place, and it does work that way, exactly that way. And I had thought of, I wondered, see, this greeting meditation is a key meditation, because I wanted to find a way to change the atmosphere immediately. You know, to set up a question immediately.
Yeah.
Rather than a person coming in and just normally going and finding a seat and sitting down and waiting for everything to begin.
Oh, I don't know.
How do you do that without directing the person? You know, and this was the way to do it. And I had a wonderful time recently when I went to Pennsylvania, because I did a translation of the greeting meditation rather than focusing on a tone and then singing as people can then, which is what it is. I decided to wave, and so I was sitting on stage, and every person that came in, I waved to them. And the reactions were wonderful. You know, they'd come down the aisles and me?
Did the audience, you alone wave?
Yes,
or
this was my solo.
Did the audience at all get involved? I mean, the people,
yes.
as soon
I mean, it had the same.
Did they do anything strange, like looking around?
Yes, they were looking around, trying to figure out.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't mean me. It was.
It's exactly another version of that piece.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Why did you choose the name Rose Mountain Slow Runner?
Rose Mountain Slow Runner. And that's a long story.
I want to hear it.
You want to hear it? You want to hear every word of the story.
I don't want you to spare me anything. Don't spare me one iota. Okay, let's go.
Well, first of all,
I'm happy. I am. I'm happy. You know how those people, you know, when you always say, oh, well, people who do music, when they do music, they get happy. I'm happy. Go ahead.
So you're doing music.
I must be. I'm happy. That's what they've always told me. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. The song is nonverbal. There are no words, and also that's very, very important as far as this particular work is concerned, because somehow words are too specific, but sounds are more direct again, simply sounds which are not don't have the associations that words would set up. So that it's more if I'm successful in my task of giving up intention, whatever emotional states I might be experiencing will come through in those sounds. So the song may change. It may change during the course of the song as something may arise, or it may change from time to time. Right. Okay. The song came as a result of various experiences that I needed to work with, and it was a way of channeling feeling and channeling it directly. Rose Mountain is the name of a friend, and Slow Runner is me. But that's only one part of it. Rose Mountain is, of course, is a beautiful image. Slow runner is ambiguous because there are runner roses.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Yes. Yeah. So the image then can build, and it depends on your own reaction to it. But the title itself is a meditation then. But the image for me is a mountain, which is a spiral of roses, slowly spiraling roses.
It's funny how we're so much alike. I mean, I've always thought of myself as a slow runner too.
Oh?
Yeah, really. I mean, it's true. I never realized that.
When I was a teenager, I had a red corduroy hat, and on the hat band it said. On the hat band it said.
That means you're telling the truth. We have that all arranged.
I'm slow but sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You gave me an amazing idea. That when you were talking about the hearing being direct, and I mean the sounds of the music of unarticulated sounds being direct, and the articulated ones being indirect. It somehow suggested to me that if that's like the contrast of directness, relative directness between, say, smelling and tasting, whereas smelling is supposed to be so much more direct than tasting, it just suggested that there might be sort of bands of feeling in our head structure that would put anything below here would seem to be more indirect, right? And anything right in here would seem to be direct.
Well, of course, I mean, most of the time I've spent trying to get out of my head.
Really?
So the most direct
Yeah.
Seems to be from here, from.
Yeah. Do you, it seems silly to say this, but do you listen to music by what is your relationship to other people's music now? How do you do that? How do you?
Well, it certainly isn't systematic. It's not systematic. It comes from proximity. And it comes from. I'm not interested in trading tapes very much. I really find that that's not a viable way, because so much of the work involves the presence, real presence of the person. And you don't get that in the document. So, I mean, it's important to me to be wherever the activity is taking place. And then part of the reason that you told me that you're doing the documentary is how we've missed so much of each other's work.
I know, yeah.
And so that we're talking, we know about various people and their activities. We hear, there's legendary commentary, and you hear descriptions, which are almost more valuable than a recorded document.
Yeah.
The descriptions
I agree.
and the transmission of the feeling of the event. So that's one way that I keep in touch with what other people are doing, is through that network, that grapevine.
Excuse me, madam. Please be all right.
You know very well that it doesn't matter to me.
Oh, then I may begin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
have you considered it, recently the idea of trying to deal with records or with a recording?
recordings.
I mean, that troubles me about this very thing that we're involved with right
That
now.
we're doing right now.
It
Yeah.
troubles me a lot, you know.
Mhm. Well, the thing is that I've never really tried to push my work,
Yeah.
you know, or to push my work through recordings, and I have several recordings. The only ones which I'm really satisfied with are the two which are of electronic pieces, and that the recording medium is a fairly good way of documenting that. But those were from the 60s, you know, the middle 60s. And the work that I've done since the middle of the 60s has been less and less suitable for recording,
Yeah.
because it simply takes place over such a, I mean, the space itself, the theatrical activity, the presence,
Yeah.
so on. It's very, very difficult, as you well know,
Yeah.
to get a truly good document.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, realizing that that's exactly what it is. It's a document, and it's not the event. So, I'm not particularly worried about preserving my work. I'm interested in doing it,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm interested in the event that we're involved in, you know. And how it can change me, or how I can learn about myself.
How do this feel?
Terrible.
I feel terrible, huh? Get used to this. It's not hurting.
No, it isn't hurting, at least not physically. Yeah. I'm interested, Bob, that you said you mentioned our likeness,
Yeah.
and I remember 10 years ago or so, or more, when I was hearing about your work, and I used to feel, you know, I would listen to your titles, the titles of your pieces, and like Public Opinion Descends Upon the Demonstrators, or
Yeah.
some of the Wolfman,
Yeah.
those various pieces. You were one of the only people I knew who was using images for titles.
Using images
And so
for pieces.
Yes, and images for pieces.
Yeah.
And I felt that was a kindred sort of
Yeah. Yeah.
link between us.
Yeah, I've always felt that very strongly.
Looks lovely.
Do you think there's any sort of state of mind or emotional something that you and a number of other people I admire have in common? Like, for instance, I might say that this isn't true, but for if I thought about it, you might say that well, that your music would for a while concern itself with sadness or something like that, something that had kind of a verbal equivalent. Do you think about that? I mean, does that enter into your considerations about your music at all?
It didn't. No, it didn't. It might enter after the fact, but mainly I was always concerned about what I was doing. And the way that I was doing it. So that I think that even though I wasn't involved with what I'm now calling meditation, I was always interested in the process that I was going through in order to make the music or to make the work. So it was how I was approaching it that was important to me. And I was always interested in what the result was, but it came through. It would come through the task somehow. So I never set out to make a sad piece, although it might be that.
Yeah.
It might be that. Or it might be many, many different things, which are ambiguous, which was what I was very interested in, ambiguity.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, when you look at your music, inevitably you have to do that at some point. When you look at your music, does it occur to you that it represents something that you can describe and that you could want to change away from? I mean, for instance, Terry says that he wants now for his music only to be what he calls positive, or he wants it to give only good feelings, right? And that sort of reminds. I mean, it could be that if your music came from from some attitude that was, say, sad, and if you looked at your music in retrospect, you might be constantly trying to, to leave that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever identify your music in that way, or is it?
Okay, that's an interesting one. Going back to Rose Mountain, Slow Runner. Certainly, I would resonate with Terry Riley and his feeling of wanting positive, to be positive, and but again, I'm approaching it through my attitude and the task, And I talked about the emotional states, of what would come through that task. So then, again, it's work on myself. Work on myself, which would result. The results would be positive.
It'd be in the form of improvement or something. I mean, you could say you improve your. I definitely feel that, and I didn't know if I wondered if it was. I thought you must feel it too, because you give the appearance of welcoming change. It seems to me you're very fluid,
Well, yes, I welcome change, although I find it very painful.
Yeah.
But we agree to do these things.
Like grief.
Excuse me, I'm going to need your feet.
Okay.
Like the color?
I hate it.
It's one of our most popular, I think. One is complete, I appreciate it.
Of course, the last time you did it, I wore the toenail polish for 2 weeks.
Just to let it wear off, sort of?
Yeah. I thought it looked good in my karate class.
Little touch of flash.
Really flashy on the snap kicks.
Just like being kicked by a Christmas tree, isn't it?
How are the nails? They, seem snug? How do they feel? Do you want to... It's fun. I'm going to have to remove your hand, okay? Tell me if this hurts at all. Shouldn't. you give me some help here? I'm going to need for you to hold the back of this right here. Sharp your nails backwards. And now it won't do it until the front. Start from back here. Pinching anywhere?
No,
No pinching.
no pinching.
Good. Keep your eyes closed. Lips. Warm?
Hmm?
Is it warm?
Oh,
I mean,
it feels very cool, actually.
oh, good.
Do you have any more questions for me, Bob?
Well, I was wondering if what you are feeling, if you could identify the source of what you're feeling and sort of explain why everybody always does that. I mean, as long as, seems like as long as we've known about ourselves, we've always been involved in whatever that thing is that's happening. And there must be a reason for that. And, you know what I mean?
You're talking about the character that's developing?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't mean to. I didn't mean to refer to that even. What I was asking you was whether you could just describe, if you could describe your feelings now.
Right now?
Yeah.
My feelings right now.
That would, because they'd be so universal. No?
Well, no, my feeling right now, when I asked you the question, I was in need of a stimulus.
Yeah.
I was in need of a stimulus, and I felt that I needed something to help me to continue to talk.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, but do you understand a little bit what I mean?
No, I think you have to explain it to me.
Well, if there was some way that you could have, if there was some way you could have a videotape of the way of a daily life in the Aztecs, or a videotape of like daily life, you name it, any culture, then the videotape would always show. It would always show the same thing, wouldn't it? It would show people changing themselves in some way. And I was wondering if you could identify that, if you could explain that feeling. Why do we do that?
Why do we make these changes?
Yeah.
Why do we do the changes? Well, my immediate response is to learn more, is to learn something,
Yeah.
is to move, and to feel the movement.
Do you feel, as in exactly the situation you're in now, do you feel somehow lighter than you felt before?
Lighter?
Lighter, yes, or more substantial, or less. You know what I mean?
Being in the interview situation, being in this situation of operations are being performed.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a performance going on.
Yes.
Outside of what we're engaged in.
Yes.
And I can feel myself changing. Yes. I can feel myself changing inside as we talk.
Yeah.
And I can, as the interview expands, and I remember how we began, and I feel the change that has occurred with you. You know, the initial sort of discomfort of finding how to center on the interview or on the talk.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Either side, yeah. It's fine. It's not getting in your eye, is it?
No.
That's okay?
It's all right.
Okay. It's coming along. I like the color.
A lot of my early work was involved with improvisation. And it was involved in putting myself into contexts or finding ways to make sounds that I didn't understand or I didn't know how to do.
Okay.
And I found that it was having sets of conditions of such nature that moved me the most, changed me the most. Having to learn how to deal with those. So that now I might choose a very uncomfortable situation.
Excuse me. Okay. With the eyelashes on now, so I'm going to need you to look this way.
In order to affect that, and affect a change. Because of course the tendency is to seek out more comfortable situations and activities. But I've never been satisfied in my work if I find that I'm becoming too comfortable with it.
Close your eye. Just yeah. Eye. Open it. How does it feel?
I think it'll be okay.
Okay. Good. It's not pinching.
No.
No? It's not. It's grouping. Mustn't have droopy lids. Okay, up. Good. Oh, how are these? Sorry. Solid.
If you were asked, oh boy, if you were asked to give some advice to young artists these days, could you give it?
Could I give it?
Yeah.
Well, I could only.
I mean, do we? Oh well, never mind. Yeah.
Advice to the young artist. I think that I'd find that very uncomfortable if I were asked to advise young artists. I mean, in that way, say, do you have advice for young artists?
Would you open your eyes? Open, look up. Marvelous. Great.
I think the only thing that I could do would be to reveal my own experience. But then, I don't think that I could find. I didn't recognize good advice until after I'd gone beyond it.
Yeah.
So that's.
I understand.
You look back and you recognize that you had good advice, you had bad advice.
If I hit you on the head, let me know, okay?
I think I feel uncomfortable with that position, the position.
Are you ever asked for advice? I mean, in that sense.
I think that it happens directly sometimes and indirectly.
Yeah.
Indirectly, people who look and want to look at you and find out what you're doing, and so that your behavior is the advice, however you're behaving. So.
Do the wake now. Does that feel?
Feels like it might jump off.
Up, pin it down. How are we on time?
We've got about 7 minutes left.
It's going to be longer than 7 minutes. It'll be longer than 7 minutes.
Well, we don't have to worry.
You look simply divine, darling. Let's see. Up.
Don't worry. Don't worry. We've got more time. Don't, all right?
It's okay.
Stretch the tape.
We're going to get ready now to do a change.
All right, well, we have about 4 minutes, but you know, we can go to the other tape, because we have about 20 minutes on that tape. So don't worry, you know, we could do that. How about that?
Yeah.
We could just carry on.
Okay.
Okay, so we have 4 minutes.
If you want to.
He wants to see the change on tape. Let's see. That's that. Okay, let's get up and I'm gonna have to do your shirt, so I'll have to take off the mic.
Yeah, why don't we, we're almost out of time on this one, so we could, yeah, perhaps we could just start the next tape with that other part. Would that be all right? Yeah, then I don't have to worry about that technical thing.
Tell me if this hurts. So, shooting. Could you give me some help here? I need you to hold the back of this right here. Sharpen your nails, backwards. Now it won't do until around the front. Start from back here. Pinching anywhere?
No.
No pinching.
No pinching.
That's good. Keep your eyes closed. Lips. Warm?
Hmm?
Is it warm?
Oh,
I mean,
It feels very cool, actually.
Oh, good.
Do you have any more questions for me, Bob?
Well, I was wondering if what you are feeling, if you could identify the source of what you're feeling and sort of explain why everybody always does that. I mean, as long as, seems like as long as we've known about ourselves, we've always been involved in whatever that thing is that's happening. And there must be a reason for that. I mean, you know what I mean?
You're talking about the character that's developing?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't mean to. I didn't mean to refer to that even. What I was asking you was whether you could just describe, if you could describe your feelings now.
Right now?
Yeah.
My feelings right now.
That would, because they'd be so universal.
Well, no, my feeling right now, when I asked you the question, I was in need of a stimulus.
Yeah.
I was in need of a stimulus, and I felt that I needed something to help me to continue to talk.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, yeah, but do you understand a little bit what I mean?
No, I think you have to explain it to me.
Well, if there was some way that you could have, if there was some way you could have a videotape of the way of a daily life in the Aztecs, or a videotape of like daily life, you name it, any culture, then the videotape would always show the same thing, wouldn't it? It would show people changing themselves in some way. And I was wondering if you could identify that, if you could explain that feeling. Why do we do that?
Why do we make these changes?
Yeah.
Why do we do the changes? Well, my immediate response is to learn more, is to learn something, is to move, and to feel the movement.
Do you feel, as in exactly the situation you're in now, do you feel somehow lighter than you felt before?
Lighter?
Lighter, yes, or more substantial, or less. You know what I mean?
Being in the interview situation, being in this situation, operations are being performed.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a performance going on.
Yes.
Outside of what we're engaged in.
Yes.
And I can feel myself changing. Yes. I can feel myself changing inside as we talk.
Yeah.
And I can, as the interview expands, and I remember how we began, and I feel the change that has occurred with you. The initial sort of discomfort of finding how to center on the interview or on the talk.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. It's not getting in your eye, is it?
No.
That's okay?
It's all right.
Okay. It's coming along. I like the color.
A lot of my early work was involved with improvisation. And it was involved in putting myself into contexts or finding ways to make sounds that I didn't understand or I didn't know how to do.
Okay.
And I found that it was having sets of conditions of such nature that moved me the most, changed me the most. Having to learn how to deal with those. So that now I might choose a very uncomfortable situation.
Excuse me. With the eyelashes on now, so I need you to look this way.
In order to affect that, and affect a change. Because of course the tendency is to seek out more comfortable situations and activities. But I've never been satisfied in my work if I find that I'm becoming too comfortable with it.
Close your eye. Just a, yeah. Eye. Open it. How does that feel?
I think it'll be okay.
Okay, good. It's not pinching.
No.
No? It's not. It's grouping. Mustn't have droopy lids. Okay, up. Good. Oh, how are these? Sorry. Solid. Closer, just a little bit.
If you were asked, oh boy, if you were asked to give some advice to young artists these days, could you give it?
Could I give it?
Yeah.
Well, I could only.
I mean, do we? Oh well, never mind. Yeah.
Advice to the young artist. I think that I would. I'd find that very uncomfortable if I were asked to advise young artists. I mean, in
Yeah.
that way, say, do you have advice for young artists?
Did you open your eyes? Open, look up, 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 up. Marvelous. Great.
I think the only thing that I could do would be to reveal my own experience. But then, I don't think that I could find. I didn't recognize good advice until after I'd gone beyond it.
Yeah.
So that's.
I understand.
You look back and you recognize that you had good advice, you had bad advice.
I hit you on the head, let me know, okay?
I think I feel uncomfortable with that position, the position.
Are you ever asked for advice? I mean, in that sense.
I think that it happens directly sometimes and indirectly.
Yeah.
Indirectly, people who look and want to look at you and find out what you're doing, and so that your behavior is the advice, however you're behaving. So.
I'm going to do the wig now. Does that feel? Like I said.
Feels like it might jump off.
Pin it down. How are we on time?
We've got about 7 minutes left.
It's going to be longer than 7 minutes.
Hmm?
It'll be longer than 7 minutes.
Well, we don't have to worry. Were you aware of discovering that were you, I don't know how to say this. It seems to me that from the way you described your music of a while ago, that there must have been a time when you weren't thinking about the way you discovered the way you described Rose Mountain Slow Runner. So there must have been a time when you discovered, when you replaced that process, when you replaced the older process with the newer one. And was that like a very sudden sort of experience, or is it still ambiguous for you?
No, there was a slow process. There was a slow evolutionary kind of process that took place, and I was very conscious of the crossing point or the change. And I can characterize it by saying that earlier, through the 60s and up to the end of the 60s, I was involved in improvisation, improvisatory works, and
fall in, just bend over, in, okay.
And improvising in the way that I told you, trying to find ways to so that I would not know how to make sounds. So I had to find conditions which would be a stimulus in that respect. And but at the same time, I found myself making intentional sounds. So I was intending to make a certain kind of music in that time.
Pauline, get your chest down. Good.
But gradually I became more and more interested in the process of listening. And listening so as I was a part, almost. And there came a time when I was no longer improvising, but I was attending to a task.
Yeah.
And I call it meditation, because I was dwelling.
Careful.
Staying with a particular thing. And as I say, trying to lose my intention in order to find a different mode. so that there came a point where I realized that that was what was taking place, indeed.
Yeah.
And it was different territory. And the feelings that I had in making the music or in doing meditation were different.
Okay.
And I think it related to Terry's feeling of wanting to be more positive, or wanting to be positive. I wanted the work to have that feeling that you mentioned about the greeting meditation, a welcome.
I'm going to put the mic, back on you. If you want to sit down. I'm going to take this Pauline with me. Those don't pinch, do they?
No.
Okay.
Have you felt in yourself can you see in yourself something that's historical, something that has been with you for a long time, some overwhelming force, that's within you? I mean, we're taught that those forces exist, that people might have lived their whole life struggling against economic problems, I mean,
Yes.
a despotic situation or something like that, and we have heroes who have spent their whole life working with that idea. And I was wondering if there is an idea like that in your life.
Okay, together. Or open.
Yes, I think so, and it showed up in my work as there's a dualism. Very often the theater pieces that I've done would be quite bizarre. There are many bizarre and, say, comical aspects, or mixed feelings in the theatrics, and then a change into some kind of say a purely musical activity, and somehow that the pull of the theatrics would set up a kind of disorientation, and then there would be again a crossing point, and then the music that occurs in some of my pieces.
Within that one piece,
yeah.
There are both things.
Right,
yeah, I
both
know.
things, yes. And within myself, I mean, there's the environmental pull. You mentioned struggle, right? Kind of feelings about myself, say, the way I want to be, as opposed to the way the environment or social environment intends for me to be, and that kind of pulling. I think that has been a sort of overwhelming force. And trying to keep myself centered and to meet that.
Yeah.
And I think it's represented in what I've been saying about the improvisations and the situations.
Yeah, I'm very interested in that. Your statement about the improvisations, because I didn't see any of those, and I had heard about them, and I didn't know how they fit in what you were doing.
Well, all the time that I was working with electronic music, for instance, the whole task for me was to find a way that I could improvise, and I could improvise with continuity. And when I was working, there was not synthesizers. I mean, the loopless system or the Moog system weren't in existence, and so I was working with equipment which wasn't really designed for playing in the way that I've been talking about or wanted to do. So I had to find a way to play the studio, which was the old classical studio, so to speak. So I had to I found ways of setting up very unstable electronic situations to work with in the studio, which would give me again this condition of having to understand as I went along, or not understand but to do.
Yeah. I understand.
You understand?
Just now, just this second.
You know? Have you gotten the message?
I just got it.
You got the message.
Thanks for answering my question. Should we stop?